I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. Hello and welcome to Creatively Torn, a channel where I mostly talk about books but sometimes don't. Today I'm just going to give some spoiler-free thoughts on the original Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. So Red Rising is a science fiction series about the far future of mankind, where we have colonized moons and planets, ushered in a new civilization that utilizes a caste system based on colors. So on the low end of the system, you'll have Reds, who I believe are mostly miners. Miners as in they mine, they're not young. Then on the opposite end, you have the Golds, who are basically the rulers of the society, are basically seen as gods to some of the lower colors. And the series follows a character named Darrow, who is a Red, as he tries to infiltrate the Golds and upend the system. That's a fairly vague plot synopsis, but going much further than that would be pretty spoilery, so I'm going to try and avoid that as much as I can. The series consists of the original trilogy, which contains Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star, then a sequel, Quartet, which is still going to this very day. The books that have been released so far are Iron Gold and Dark Age, with Lightbringer coming next month in July, or whenever July was if you're seeing this in the future. And then the final book, I believe, is called Red God, which will be releasing, I think, next year. Anyways, I've only read the first 3 books in the series, so that's all I'll be referring to in this video. But again, I'm going to try and refrain from any spoilers at all, so you should be safe if you haven't read any of them. I just wanted to get some quick thoughts on video about my opinion so far from what I've read. So I first heard about these books back in 2022, last year, when I discovered booktube and really got back into reading seriously. Early on, they appealed to me a lot with the futuristic setting, sometimes dark nature of the stories, and some of the fantastic quotes and one-liners that came from the books. And I've been wanting to get more into sci-fi and fantasy anyways, especially more modern sci-fi. So I added these to my list, and I finally got around to starting the series back in February, maybe March, with Red Rising. And concerning book 1, I think a lot of people who are fans of the series will sell you on the fact that the first book is the weakest, and then it only gets better from there, and I guess I can agree with that. They will say that book 1 feels very formulaic and sort of YA, which I can agree to with an extent, but I think I like Red Rising as a book more than a lot of people do. I quite liked the first book. I think it was fun. Had a lot of great characters. Admittedly, the first third, or maybe the half of the book, I wasn't quite sold on, just because we're being introduced to all these new people in this new setting that I really didn't care about. But once you realize what the rest of the book is going to actually be about, it really gets a lot more interesting. Pretty fast-paced, it's got a strong ending, a lot of great characters, a lot of great quotes, which is a given for the entire series. And it's really a pretty solid introduction to the world, which has a lot of very obvious Roman influences. Some people seem to have a lot of issues with the first-person point of view in the series, especially when it comes to some certain tricky moments. It's never been a problem for me. I don't know, I don't have any issues with that. That's all I can say, I don't know. As a whole, I actually really like Pierce Brown's writing style. It's usually quick and dramatic and snappy, which really fits the story perfectly, I think. I've never found anything really clunky or awkward about it. And actually, some of the passages can be quite descriptive and well written. So as a whole, I ended up giving Red Rising, the book, probably 4 out of 5. It's pretty good. It did have some weak spots in it. But like I said, I like it more than some people do. The second book, Golden Sun, is maybe my favorite of the 3. I think a lot of people prefer this one as well. It definitely is a step up from the first book in a lot of ways. However, I don't think it's as noticeable as some people do. I think it's a gradually more mature story with a grander scope, a lot more characters and more complex character dynamics. Obviously, it builds up the world more. The characters are really standouts here as well. A lot of great action, lots of intrigue and political maneuvering throughout the story. It's got a great ending and pretty solid pacing throughout. Like I said, the world gets much more fleshed out in this entry. And I had to mention somewhere, so I'm also doing it here, that I really like the naming convention for the series. So everything sounds really cool. Everything from people's nicknames to their actual names and their naming conventions to what the random little gadgets and tools are called. The world is very much inspired by Roman culture, so it really adds a level of gravitas and culture to the entire setting. So I think overall, I gave Golden Sun a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, I think it's my favorite of the 3 so far. And then finally is Morning Star, which I think is a little weaker than Golden Sun, but not by a whole lot. I think it is still superior to Red Rising. The entire first act is great, from its small emotional moments to its bigger action scenes. It's really a wild ride. And beyond that, there's a few chapters in the book that are hands down some of my favorite chapters in the entire series so far. There's a lot of really good character moments, a lot of fantastic character arcs in this book as well. And it has a mostly satisfying ending. I know there is quite a big issue with the final act that ties into one of the complaints I mentioned earlier. But like I said, it doesn't really bother me all that much, so I didn't have a problem with it. The thing that did frustrate me in this book were some of the points in the middle that didn't quite click for me, and it really kind of slowed things down. And then in the end, one of the final major plot points was kind of rushed. I could use a lot more time with that aspect and with some of the characters involved, just in that plot point. But as for the final rating for Golden Sun, I think I split the difference and gave it a 4.25 out of 5. Like I said, I think it's pretty good, but I think it's a little weaker than Golden Sun, though I could be swayed otherwise on any given day. But that pretty much takes me to where I am now. Depending on when this goes up, I will be either starting or have started Iron Gold, which is the first book in the sequel series. I'm very much looking forward to catching up with the latest 2 books, so I can read the new release in July. So yeah, obviously, as a whole, I've really enjoyed this series so far. As of now, it's probably one of my favorite series of all time, just due to the fact I haven't read a whole lot of series yet. So just by default, it's got to go in there somewhere. We'll see how it fares over time. But nevertheless, it is a fast-paced, action-packed story with some stellar characters and some moments that will get you hyped for sure. I definitely recommend checking out Red Rising if you are into sci-fi space operas, action-heavy books, or if you're interested in ancient Roman history. You'll catch a lot of references here. Or if you're just in for a good basic rebellion tale, I think this will fit the bill. I think it's a really well-written series. I think it's a very easy series to get into, especially if you're new to sci-fi or even fantasy maybe. I've been told it gets gradually darker, especially in the sequel series, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing how dark it gets, as I am quite a fan of that. So I have to say somewhere that I think this is a really vivid series as well. You can really imagine some of the moments that take place in the books. I think it would really be a great adaptation for a TV series if they could get the casting right. I think it could work out really well if done correctly. So if you're in that industry, go ahead and give this one a shot, or whatever. I don't know. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Just wanted to give some basic thoughts on the series so far. But feel free to connect with me on Goodreads or Instagram, or subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and as always,